This is the turning point in this project. We are going from framing to mechanicals, and if you don't set this process up right, this is where your project can fall apart. So let me walk you through how we're setting up Echo Pond for success. So last time we were here, we were prepping for the concrete slab, and the concrete slab required a tremendous amount of prep and forethought. The slab is actually our finished surface in this home. So everything that you see on the inside will ultimately be the finished product. That means everything had to be placed perfectly, and we'll go inside and I'll show you how all of that actually ended up and just how accurate we were. In terms of framing this home, we actually went through a formal shop drawing process with Cape Cod Panel, the architect of Possible, as well as our structural engineer, Hayes and O'Neill. And what that process looked like was every piece was either prefabricated or pre-cut before it showed up on site. Built in a factory, shipped to site, and that allowed us to be framing the home while we were placing concrete. So once that slab was ready, we had material being delivered literally the next day, and we had this house stood up in just 8 days. We rolled into our weather-resistant barrier that you see on the building now and made this home weather-tight. So the moment the project is weather tight, that's when we can activate our MEPs. We have our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, which is what MEP stands for. And they're all on site immediately following making this thing weather tight, so we can start on the inside. Additionally, we have all of our windows and doors, and on this side you can actually see this side's pretty private. We have these two independent slabs. We have our main house, and we have what we call the studio, and it's separated by this breezeway right in the middle here, and we'll walk through it. But before we do, we have this big picture window with two full height lift slides, and we'll walk through the details of the window installation, working with Anderson Windows and how we went through that process in a future video. But know that they were actually also an intricate role in building the panels, because we essentially had these windows being fabricated at the same time panels were, at the same time that concrete was. So they were part of that process to make sure that when it was framed, windows were on site and they were ready to go in. You can see behind me that they're all installed now, and they went in completely seamlessly. These two structures are separate on the first floor, but then connected by our steep roof that houses 2 additional bedrooms, an additional bathroom, and a den. But as you walk through the breezeway actually brings you to what is the entire focus of this site, which is the pond in front of us. So as you look through the trees, you can see the water glistening, but as you loop back around, you can see how the home becomes a lot more transparent. We have these massive picture windows. We have one here in the studio, one here in the future mudroom, the living room, and then on the end there, the primary bedroom. On the second floor, we have these really interesting skylights. They're massive. They're really big. These are a Velux product. We had to use a specific product to make sure that we met egress code. This home doesn't have a lot of windows. Everything is a lift slide product or a skylight. Besides the picture windows, everything else is an operable, essentially door or skylight, which operate as a window in some cases. For example, this one right here, you have these full height lift slide doors. They're really designed as windows because we have a fixed screen in front of them. So when you open and close them, you don't necessarily pass through them. You're really just opening to the outside. The one thing that happens on these projects is there's always something that is needed, and we want to be super efficient with our time on site and making sure that our team has the things that they need. So I pull up the Home Depot app, I place my order, and by the time I swing by the store, it's waiting for me at the Pro Desk. I flash my HD Pass, I scan it once. I'm not wasting time, I'm not waiting in lines, and there's absolutely no guesswork. Take care, guys.
Great.
Thank you.
Take care.
And everything shows up in our account. So when our accounting is organizing this and trying to job cost, it's already categorized. Even better, when we don't need to swing by the store, the Home Depot actually delivers straight to our job. And that's a game changer because it keeps the crews moving and the project on track. From the app to the HD Pass to direct site delivery, the Home Depot Pro services are built for how we actually work. And I know I'm getting competitive pricing when I'm shopping at the Home Depot, which fits my business needs. I want to pop into what is the studio first, and we'll jump into the studio, and you can see right away when final grade is here, you actually have a flush transition right into this space. But this will all be polished concrete. There's a lot that has to go into protecting this through construction because this is the finished surface. From a framing perspective, 2x8 walls. And this wall assembly here gets 8 inches of insulation, but we're adding exterior insulation as well. This will be a rock wool comfort bat here. So mineral wool bat insulation on the cavity, but then we're doing exterior mineral wool, which is the rock wool comfort board on the entire outside of the home. If you've been following along, you probably know that's a pretty typical detail for us. We're doing that here. We have a fully insulated concrete slab, and we'll run that continuous installation in a Rockwell product up and over the roof. So we have 2x8 walls here, and then over here, you can actually see how this goes to a 2x8 to a 2x6. And this is designed for our pocket door. So like I said, we'll come back to this in a future episode. But you can see how when this door opens, it's actually tucking into a pocket. So you'll actually have a fixed screen, so you're essentially using this as a window, and your door is actually inside of a wall pocket. And in order to accomplish that, you need a thicker wall cavity. So behind that black, which is a MDO that we painted, is a fully insulated cavity. And then we have our Intello Plus interior vapor retarder membrane installed to make sure that that control layer is installed and continuous. You also notice at the top of the walls, we have all of this Intello that's prepped and into the inboard. So what you're seeing here is essentially as these first floor walls were installed, we actually draped this over the top plate. Once that floor was framed, we actually took the excess that was hung on the outside and brought it up onto the subfloor of the second floor, and then you'll run up our roof, which is our insulated cavity, and then you'll have the exterior insulation beyond that. We have 2 showers in this home. We depressed the concrete to allow us to have complete zero threshold showers. Typically, if you're building on a concrete slab, you'd have to put a curb, and then you're building on top of the finished surface with your shower. We wanted completely seamless floors. So despite whatever we do for a finish in there, which I think we're going with tile, we can make that flush with the polished concrete, which is really nice. First example of plumbing coming through the slab, that has to be put exactly where our plumbing fixtures were, but there's actually more detail on the other part of the home. We were working with in even tighter tolerances. So as we walk in the entry here, we have our second floor staircase, we have our laundry room, a powder room, and then this is essentially our entry space that will have cabinetry. But when we enter into the bigger space, you're immediately greeted with what will be the future kitchen. So this is what I was talking about in terms of accuracy. These pieces of 1-inch conduit actually are feeding the future island for electrical, and the island sits on a 2-inch by 2-inch leg. What that means is we have a 2-inch square leg for the island on both ends, and these pieces of conduit had to be exactly where those legs landed because there is no tolerance when you only have a 2-inch leg and a 1-inch piece of conduit. So that's all been verified. Our layout was spot on, and that's a big thanks to our super Mark who's running this project. As we get into this space, this is where you start to see how these windows are interacting with the exterior of the home. You have these floor to ceiling pieces of glass and then 4 lift slides that connect you to the outdoors. But when we think about framing, again, you're seeing how this is put together. We had 2x8 and 2x6 in the other room, but these are actually 2x10. But that is for not only for the structural integrity, but also for the insulation value. We want to make sure that this home is incredibly high performing. It allows us to kill some of the sizing from a mechanical perspective. So as we're going through this, it's really important to make sure that we're verifying things. We have floor outlets. These need to land in very particular spots. Same thing with against the window. You can start to see how that track is depressed. The framing and where we're at in this process is making sure that the framing is detailed and we have all of that punch list done and prepped and ready for our mechanicals. What that means is, of course, the framing needs to be done. You should have all your punch list framing done. You should get that inspection report, make sure all of that is done, because what happens is when they're on site and they're having to modify things or lay things out, if there's stuff that's missing, it becomes really cumbersome and you end up starting to spend more money or duplicating the spending because you weren't really prepared for them. Secondly, make sure the envelope is fully tight. You are fully wrapped. You're not getting any water in the home. The moment this was framed, after 8 days, we immediately went into making sure it was weatherproof, got it weatherproof. Our windows were on site and ready to be installed, and now we're weather tight. So when the electrician, the plumber, and the HVAC contractor on site, they know that their work is being protected. Make sure that you get ahead of them with layout. Our super's looking at things like this framing here and making sure that they understand where the center line of this wall is, making sure that things are laid out as to where the drain should go. For example, here you can see our vent stack going through these studs. Where is that going to go up and out through the roof? When it comes to layout, the more that you can prep for these guys, the better that their job is going to be. I always say, if you can make their job efficient, they're going to be a great partner to you. So I want to go upstairs and show you where we stand with the second floor as we roll into the mechanicals up there. So this house is very house shaped. It is a big square box on the bottom and a really steep roof where we've tucked in the second floor up here. Now on the far end, we've used that for mechanical space. And as you can see here, we've actually taken advantage of the double height space, which really, accentuates the pitch of that roof. Now you have to stay tuned because we have a really cool detail at the ridge, which we're gonna execute out of plaster, and it will not be something that you typically see. As to where we're prepping for another air handler, this will be a big Balco access panel, our standard for anytime we're putting access for mechanicals or anything that is necessary. Plastered in detail, makes it super accessible. And then as you work your way down, you come up the staircase. This is the den area. We have our first of 2 bedrooms up here. You can see how this is tucked in to our roof line. You have these big, beautiful Velux skylights, 2 of them actually. And this is how we meet the egress code, but also gives you the view of the pond, and really does so in an interesting way where you're tucked into the roof line, and what would typically be unusable space has now been able to be captured within the footprint of the space. Really neat job by the mechanical trades prepping up here. And then as you loop your way down, we have our second floor bathroom, which is all prepped, ready. We have our rough plumbing in, and then our second bedroom. So this one here, another Velux skylight, a second unit. This is to meet our egress code as well. Oversized unit, capturing the view. And then you have this single window here up on the second floor. And what I love about all of these is everywhere you look out, you're connected directly with the greenery. When you look straight ahead, it's nothing but forest. That's a big part of the brief on this project. This home is situated on 11 acres. And it's a really special project for a great family. And we're excited to be part of it, excited to bring you along. So if you're interested in seeing how this develops, make sure you subscribe and follow along. We're gonna film this project from start to finish and show you all the details that go into building a home like this.